Today we're talking about Enneagram 2. We're gonna go a little bit deeper and understand what the foundation of this Enneagram personality type is, what are the main characteristics, fears, motivations, and how this type can change with respect to stressful versus healthy periods. So where does Enneagram 2 move to in times of stress, and where does Enneagram 2 move to in times of health, happiness, relaxation, and so on. So all about that in the next few minutes. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and let's dive in. So Enneagram 2 is also known as the helper or the giver. People often associate this type with others who are very good at focusing on the needs of other people, especially the emotional needs of others. That's why when it comes to a correlation with the MBTI, we will often find that usually, like 80% of the time or so, it is FJ types, particularly ENFJs, ESFJs, but also INFJs and ISFJs that fall within this group. And you can probably easily see that the way that we describe Enneagram 2 fits a lot with the profile of extroverted feeling as a cognitive function. Not in all the cases. We have other types that can easily be Enneagram 2 as well. We've got the other feelers, the FP types, and sometimes even thinkers that could be in this category, but it's less likely. Usually, as I said, it's the types that score high on extroverted feeling. So, Enneagram 2, the helper, is very much focused on understanding the needs of other people and doing whatever they can to help those people out, to be generous, to help them fulfill their emotional needs or their physical needs as well, their like concrete material needs, it depends. But most of the time, the helpers are very much focused on diving deeper and connecting with what the emotional content, let's say, in someone is trying to show, is trying to scream for, what kind of needs that kind of person is stretching towards in order to fulfill. And basically, even though this type can really look like a very generous, altruistic, selfless person, in the average or lower than average levels of development, the situation can actually look quite different. Because the Enneagram 2 will actually work and operate from a motivation of believing that if they don't put other people first, if they don't prioritize fulfilling the needs of other people, they won't receive love and appreciation themselves. They won't receive the kind of validation that they are so desperately looking for. And this is a message that has kind of, grown into their minds as children. It doesn't mean that their parents were incapable of giving them love. Sometimes maybe it was the case, but oftentimes it's just that the child perceived and understood the world around him or her in a specific way, which led to this belief, this irrational belief forming into the mind, basically. So the Enneagram 2 grows with the belief that in order for them to be worthy of other people's love, in order for them to have the kind of identity and the kind of image that they want, they need to keep pleasing others. They need to keep putting other people first. They need to keep focusing on helping other people feel better. And imagine this. You've had so much practice with noticing patterns in how other people feel, with reading emotions very quickly, with reading the needs of other people extremely fast. You've done this for your whole life, and obviously when you're an adult, you're extremely in tune with it, and it's hard to stop. It's hard to kind of tell yourself, well, now is the time that you can put, like a cut on this and focus on your needs for once, right? Especially if the person is not really self-aware, they will struggle with changing this about themselves, and they will continuously focus on pleasing others. And of course, this comes at a cost, because the more you focus on other people's needs and the more you neglect your own needs, the more likely it is that you will suffer, you will feel frustrated that, nobody ever cares for me, nobody ever tries to help me, nobody ever looks at my needs. Why do I always have to take into account how other people feel? Why do I always have to take into account the emotional needs of my family and friends and partner and so on? And in the meantime, it seems to me that nobody does the same. Nobody gives me the same kind of emotional validation that I give to others. And this is basically when Enneagram 2 moves into basically the time of stress, which means that they start looking more like an Enneagram type 8. They move to 8 in times of stress. But they don't necessarily take the positive characteristics or the healthy characteristics of an 8. In times of stress, they adopt the more negative, unhealthy characteristics of the 8. So, because 8 is the more, challenging type, the type that can look quite aggressive in unhealthy times, the 2 will come from this place of frustration that their needs are never met, that other people are never taking care of them in the same way that they take care of other people. And they will start pushing and, instead of nicely and kindly asking others for help, they will start being very loud about it. They will be aggressive about it. They will, scream, here I am, these are my needs, I need them to be met, you need to help me. You need to thank me for everything that I've ever done for you. And this is basically a time when the 2 feels anxious, very angry, very disappointed, and very stressed. And it's important for the 2 to say, hey, it's not okay. What has led me to this path? What kind of needs do I have that I've really not been paying attention to? What are the things that I've been avoiding and kind of trying to hide from in order to make other people feel loved and appreciated? And it's important for the 2 to pay attention to that. It's important for the 2 to be careful how much energy they're investing in, pleasing others and helping others, because the more they do it and the more they neglect themselves, the more they will start looking like this 8. But the negative side of the 8, as I said. And this will definitely show their tendency to become drama queens, maybe. The kind of person that you don't really want to be around because they become exhausting. They start becoming much more self-centered, self-focused, obsessed with their own needs, which obviously is not really pleasurable for anyone, the person that does it or everyone else around them. So this is the time that the 2 must say, well, I recognize that this is a pattern that I have. I recognize that this is a moment when I'm really neglecting myself and reaching, rock bottom. And instead, I can do the opposite thing. I can move towards 4. 4 as a path of integration shows the 2 the ability to focus on the inside rather than the outside. So instead of continuously paying attention to how other people feel and what other people need, the 2 will learn to draw their attention to the inside and look at their own needs. What do they want? What is important to them? What do they care about? What they want to do in a specific situation? What kind of emotional needs are there that need to be cared for, catered for, appreciated? And it's good for the 2 to do this, practice, this regular practice of reflecting. Could be journaling. As a 2, I found this to be extremely helpful. Taking a journal and writing down regularly, maybe not every day, but at least once every few days. What are my needs? What is going on with me? What is important to me? Where do I need help? And help is another issue that 2s struggle with because it is extremely uncomfortable for them to ask for help. It can be for other types as well, obviously, but for the 2, this is particularly an issue because their people-pleasing tendencies make them feel like if they ask for help, things are not okay because this is not the role that they're used to taking. This is not the position that comes naturally to them. So they will forcefully ask for their help from the inside rather than the outside. And when they actually do reach out, and when they actually do ask other people to help them, this will make them feel embarrassment or shame. Something I discussed in one of my previous videos about the shame group. Types 2, 3, and 4 all struggle with this. And for the 2 in particular, when they get out of their shell and ask for help, for someone else to actually do the things that they so readily do for other people, this makes them feel extremely embarrassed, extremely out of place. And it can cause this really intense bodily and emotional reaction that makes them feel like, well, what's actually going on here? I can't continue asking for help. This is not normal. I don't need this. What am I going to do about it? So they start like going away and hiding somewhere because of how intense this emotional experience was. And I'm not saying that it's easy in general to ask for help, as I was saying, but tools will constantly press the button on that. But they have to realize that it's absolutely normal to ask for help. Everyone needs help, obviously, right? And it's a bit weird for them to think that it's okay for them to help others, it's okay for others to need help and ask for help, but it's not okay for the 2 to have the same needs. And deep down, unconsciously, this posits them on a position of superiority with respect to other people. It makes them feel like they are better than others because they are the ones that help and give and so on and so forth. And a lot of them will not really admit this because it's an uncomfortable truth, but most of the times in their average levels of development, this is how 2s operate. That's why it is absolutely essential for them to recognize this pattern and work with it. Try to pay attention to their needs much more frequently, and not only in those situations where it feels like they are completely falling apart, when they feel like nobody ever helps them back. And the unhealthy perspectives that 2s have is that they pretend as if they don't need the same help as others, or they give others help hoping that other people will notice and will pay them back without them having to ask for anything. And most of the time this will actually not happen, and the 2 will be very frustrated and annoyed, again going into the stress period, going to 8. So yeah, some thoughts about how Enneagram 2 works and operates, about how this type changes with respect to periods of stress and periods of integration. Share your thoughts below. What do you think about Enneagram 2s? Do you know any, or are you one yourself? I'm curious to know.